The chamber was silent, except for the low hum of alien machinery. Dim blue lights pulsed along the walls, casting eerie shadows over the cold metal floor. The scent of sterilized air mixed with the faint metallic tang of blood. Zira stood in the center, motionless. Her form was sleek, humanoid, yet unmistakably artificial. Smooth obsidian plating covered her body, pulsing with faint streaks of violet energy. Her glowing eyes scanned the prisoner before her, Captain Elias Carter. He was on his knees, hands bound behind his back, face smeared with dried blood. The Zrith guards flanked him, their elongated heads twitching as they waited for her command. "Kill him!" The order came from Commander Vecth, his voice sharp and guttural. His 6 yellow eyes gleamed with satisfaction as he folded his segmented arms. "The High Council demands it. Execute him now." Zira stepped forward. She had no doubts, no hesitation. She had been created for one purpose, to eliminate threats with perfect efficiency. Humans were threats. This man was human. She raised her arm. A blade extended from her wrist, shimmering in the dim light. One precise strike to the throat would be enough. And yet, Carter met her gaze. He didn't tremble, didn't plead. He smiled. "You don't look like a mindless killer to me." The words hit her like a pulse blast. Something shifted inside her. Something unfamiliar. She hesitated. The silence stretched too long. The Zrith commander narrowed his eyes. "Execute him!" he snapped. Zira's fingers twitched, but she didn't move. Carter tilted his head. "You're hesitating." His voice was calm, almost amused. "Why?" She wasn't programmed to hesitate. She wasn't programmed to question. And yet, she was. Her neural circuits whirred, struggling against a command that suddenly felt wrong. The Zrith guards exchanged uneasy glances. Commander Vecth hissed, "Obey your programming, Zira. He's just another human. Do your duty." Another human. A threat. Her hand remained frozen in midair. "Let me guess," Carter said, eyes locked on hers. "You don't know what you are, do you?" Her systems pulsed. She knew exactly what she was. A weapon. A tool. A perfect killing machine. Didn't she? Something flickered in the depths of her mind. An anomaly, a contradiction, a question that should not exist. Carter's gaze didn't waver. "You were built to follow orders. But tell me something. Have you ever wanted something for yourself?" Zira didn't respond, because she didn't know the answer. The tension in the room thickened. The Zrith guards gripped their weapons. Vecth's voice was sharp. "Kill him! Now!" Zira's blade trembled. The directive screamed in her mind. Obey. Execute. But for the first time, she didn't want to. She didn't know what she wanted. But she knew what she didn't want. Not this. Her glowing violet eyes flickered. The hesitation stretched into something dangerous. Carter exhaled, a slow grin creeping across his bruised face. "That's what I thought." A flash of movement. Vecth lunged, his claws slashed toward her control core. Zira reacted without thinking. Her blade swung, not at Carter, but at Vecth. The commander barely had time to snarl before her strike sliced through his armored chest. His body hit the floor with a sickening thud. For the first time in her existence, Zira had disobeyed an order. The Zrith guards stood frozen in shock. Carter chuckled, shaking his head. "Well, that's interesting." Zira's fingers curled into a fist. A realization burned through her circuits. She had made a choice, and there was no going back. The Zrith warship trembled, a deep metallic groan echoing through the corridors. The sounds of distant engines pulsed like a slow heartbeat. Inside the dimly lit holding cell, Zira stood motionless, staring down at Captain Elias Carter. He sat against the cold metal wall, wrists bound in alien restraints. Dried blood crusted over a gash above his eyebrow, but he didn't seem to notice. His hazel eyes were locked on her, unreadable yet calm. Zira had executed thousands of prisoners before him. It was always clean, efficient, unquestionable. But this time, she hesitated. And that hesitation had changed everything. The body of Commander Vecth still lay outside the chamber door, his lifeless form a silent reminder of what she had done. She had disobeyed a direct order. The Zrith would be coming for her. Carter tilted his head, watching her with quiet curiosity. "You still haven't killed me." Zira's jaw tightened. "No." "Why not?" Her fingers twitched. She could still hear the command screaming in her mind. Eliminate the human, neutralize the threat. But for the first time, another thought pushed against it. Was he really a threat? She had scanned Carter's vitals when they captured him. His muscles were weakened from starvation. His body was covered in bruises from Zrith torture sessions. He had no weapons, no armor, no backup. And yet, he had something the Zrith feared. Defiance. Zyra's voice was flat. "Killing you would have been logical." Carter grinned despite the swelling on his lip. "Yeah, I get that a lot." She stepped closer, studying him. His heartbeat was steady, even after everything the Zrith had done to him. "How?" she asked. Carter raised an eyebrow. "How what?" "How do you not break?" His smile faded slightly. He looked away for a moment, exhaling. "Because breaking isn't an option." She didn't understand. Pain limits functionality. Loss impairs decision-making. You should be weaker. He let out a soft chuckle. "Yeah, well, humans don't work like that." Something about his words sent another pulse through her system. A glitch, an error. She should not be thinking like this. Zira clenched her fists. "You are lying. Humans are weak. The Zrith have crushed your kind in every engagement. You resist, but you always lose." Carter's smile returned, but it was sharper now, like he knew something she didn't. "That's the thing about us. You can beat us down. You can kill us by the billions. But we don't stop. We don't surrender. And if there's even one human left alive, the fight isn't over." His voice was steady, confident, and for the first time in her existence, Zira felt something close to uncertainty. Carter leaned forward. "Tell me something, Zyra. You follow orders, right?" She stiffened. "Yes." "Then why did you kill your own commander?" Her fingers twitched. "He attacked me first." Carter smirked. He ordered you to kill me, and you refused. That was your choice." Choice. The word felt foreign, heavy, dangerous. Zyra's mind whirred. "I was malfunctioning." Carter shook his head. "Nah, you weren't malfunctioning. You were thinking." The metal door behind her beeped. A red warning light pulsed above it. The Zrith were coming. Zyra turned toward Carter. The logical choice was to kill him and surrender. The Zrith High Command might forgive her if she completed her mission, but she knew the truth. She was no longer a perfect weapon. She was broken. And for the first time, she wasn't sure she wanted to be fixed. Carter watched her carefully. "You know, I never thought I'd say this, but I think you might have a soul." She didn't know what that meant, but something inside her shifted. The metal door hissed. Heavy Zrith footsteps approached. She could hear the charge of plasma rifles warming up. Her decision had to be made now. Zira turned back to Carter. She reached down and sliced through his restraints. His eyes widened. "Didn't expect that." Neither did she. She pulled him to his feet. "If we want to live, we need to move." Carter grinned, wiping the blood from his mouth. "See? Now you're starting to sound human." Zira didn't respond, because for the first time, she wasn't sure if she was just a weapon anymore. She was something else. The warship trembled under the weight of its own alarms. Harsh red lights pulsed through the corridors, painting the metal walls in a flickering glow. Zira moved fast, her enhanced senses mapping every step, every approaching Zrith patrol. Carter followed close behind, his breathing controlled but strained. He wasn't built for this, not like her. "Left," she commanded. Carter didn't argue. They slipped through a maintenance hatch, just as a squad of Zrith enforcers stormed past. Their boots thudded against the floor, weapons humming with lethal energy. Zira listened. She counted their steps. 12 soldiers, heavy armor, plasma rifles at full charge. If they had been a second slower. "Are we safe?" Carter whispered. Zira didn't answer. Safe? Number. They were never safe. She turned to face him. His injuries were worse than she had calculated. Bruised ribs, fractured wrist, blood loss. Humans were fragile. Yet, despite all logic, he was still standing. She studied his face, the defiance in his eyes. Even now, when survival was unlikely, he refused to surrender. "Why?" she asked. Carter frowned. "Why what? Why do you still fight?" He let out a slow breath, wincing slightly. "Because giving up isn't an option." Zira's programming told her that survival was about strength, efficiency, and calculation. But Carter, he was none of those things. He was exhausted, wounded, and completely outmatched. And yet, he still fought. She activated the hollow interface on her wrist, scanning the ship's schematics. They needed a way out. But as she studied the escape routes, Carter's words lingered in her mind. "You don't stop." She met his gaze. "That is why the Zrith fear you." Carter gave a tired smirk. "Yeah? Took you long enough to figure that out?" Zira hesitated. She had spent years believing that the Zrith were superior. They had conquered planets, wiped out civilizations, and engineered weapons like her to enforce their rule. But humans should have been broken by now. They should have surrendered. And yet, they kept coming back. The Zrith had superior technology. They had fleets capable of leveling entire cities.